how to discipline a child who doesn't care. Hey there, I'm Charlotte Recalful teaching for you. Thank you so much for joining me. Now, you might be faced with kids who are having meltdowns, or they are just frustrating all the time. Now, if you're trying to discipline a child and they're saying, meh, I don't care, or they're genuinely showing you that they don't care, it's really annoying, isn't it? Now, oftentimes, it's not that they just don't care, it's because the problem doesn't actually match the consequence. And when that happens as a mismatch, we see a little bit of a battle going on there between child and parent or child and teacher. So depending on where you live, you might be, say, spanking your child, or maybe you're physically removing them or isolating them from a space and moving them to their room. Regardless, that doesn't always work, because if it doesn't match the consequence, then, or the problem, then how is it going to help, right? There's also parents and teachers who try and stay away from having a confrontation with their child because they're afraid that the child may not like them, or that things might escalate. Now, when this happens, it's really difficult for both parent and a child, and especially when they have an outburst. Our job as teachers and parents is not to be their friend, but to help them be better citizens and to help them regulate their emotions, because that's what's going to be important for them in the real world. So today we're going to look at how do we match the problem and the consequence so that when we discipline our child, they're actually going to listen to us over time. It's not going to be a quick fix overnight, but it's something that we're going to work on over time. So let's look at 4 different strategies. They sound simple, but it takes time. So let's look at it together. The first one is set appropriate expectations and routines. So outline what you expect of your child in the way of behavior and chores. So this chores also can take place in class, right? Where you're expecting them to clean up, for example. So my son knows when we're going to be working on academics and when we're going to play. He knows when we go out what is expected of him, especially when he looks at a toy that he really wants. When he gets out of turn, or your child gets out of turn, or for me, my students get out of turn, I actually warn them about their behavior ahead of time, and then I remind them about the consequence before I follow through, so that they have some time to correct the behavior. Okay? Now, if you'd like to learn how to create routines for your children, check out the link in the description where it says full episode, and go to step number 1, where I've linked to this article for you. Okay? Number 2 is provide clear consequences. So instead of giving your child a time out, make sure that it actually relates to what the problem is. So let's have an example. If you ask your child to clean up the table and put their stuff in, or the utensils and the dishes into the dishwasher, and they've decided, I don't want to do this, you can't make me, you get angry, you send them to their room. Well, they are trying to communicate something with you, and it's saying, I don't want to do this job, right? And when you send them to their room, they've just gotten away from it. So guess what's going to happen? They're going to repeat this the next time you ask them to do a job, because, well, they're hoping that you're going to give them the same or a similar consequence. Instead, what I like to do is say, all right, well, you've shown me by not clearing up the dishes that you are not wanting to have dessert, because we're cleaning this table right now to make room for dessert. So that's okay, you can go to your room if you want to. See, now they're going to the room, but you don't get this yummy dessert, whatever the dessert is. Maybe it's chocolate cake. And so at that point, they realize, oh no, I guess I'm not getting chocolate cake today, which means perhaps if I do this again, I'm not going to get all of this yummy stuff. So what we want is to make sure that there's a correlation between the problem and the consequence. Okay, this is a natural consequence. It may not seem like a lot, but we don't want to punish them for every single thing. So we're trying to show them, you don't do this, this happens, and it's not the best idea, right? So we try to listen. The third thing here, actually, before we go to this, is when we provide a consequence, right? You're going to be faced with something here, which is a meltdown. right? Especially if you're taking away dessert. It's going to happen regardless. And we want to be able to minimize this over time. So when this happens, I recommend, at this point you've sent your child to the room, I don't recommend just sending them to their room and saying, okay, go think about what you've done, because sometimes they don't know what they've done, right? Because I've asked my son, he has no idea what he's done sometimes. Or they're going to go and daydream. That was what I used to do. I would daydream and live in my own world. So that consequence made no difference to me. So instead, create a calming area for them where they can go and learn how to regulate their emotions. And better yet, if you could go with them. So sit alongside them, show them, hey, you know what you've done, it made me upset too, and this is how I'm going to regulate my emotions. So they start to learn by watching you. Oh, she's angry, and this is how she's managing her behavior, right? And then they start to watch and they start to emulate. It may not happen right away. In fact, it may take a long time, but in time they're going to start to emulate. Now, if you'd like to learn how to create this space on a minimalist budget, check out the link in the description where it says full episode and go to step number 2, okay? Because I've outlined different ones for different age groups, all right? Now, the third thing that I'd like you to do is be open to conversation. This is hard. So talk to your child about the reasons why their behavior has caused a specific consequence. Ask them why they're behaving in a certain way. Sometimes they may be able to give you an answer, and oftentimes they may say, I don't know, go away, or I don't care to talk to you. And that's okay. Now, what you're doing, though, is not listening to those words. I know you may want to, but we're not going to do that. Instead, we're going to watch our children. When does this occur? When does this behavior occur? Okay? And when this behavior occurs, is there a trend that we can see? Because once you see a trend, then you'll start to see why this behavior is occurring. And then I would recommend just sitting with your child, making sure they know that you're there, you're in their corner, and no matter what, you're not leaving them. You're going to be there, open to conversation. So even if they say go away, I'm not going away. I'm going to be here for you all of the time. Now, another thing I actually would love for you to do is, if it's at all possible, is embrace them. It's going to help them calm down faster and probably be more open to you. So take some time, be there for them, be there in their corner. Okay? Now, the fourth step is embrace the attempt and the positivity. So if your kids are trying to do something, but they do it incorrectly, praise them anyway. Praise the living daylights out of them. Like, oh my gosh, thank you so much for putting this dish away. They might have put it in the wrong spot that you don't want them to put it in. And you know what? When they're not looking, you can correct that. But in that moment, praise them, praise them, praise them. Because it's going to raise their self-confidence, and they're going to feel better about themselves. They're going to feel that joy that, oh, I can do this, you know. Now, a lot of people are going to say, don't overpraise a child. And I don't recommend doing that for everything, and not for a prolonged period of time, but do it for a short while, because you want to be able to get them to do a specific task, right? You want to raise their self-esteem so that they do this, so that they listen, so that we let go of some of those meltdowns. Once you start to see improvement, then you start to reduce it. Not cut it out altogether, but reduce the amount of praise that you're giving them. But we still want to praise them, all right? So we've talked about, we're going to recap really quickly. We've talked about the importance of helping discipline your child and really looking at how to connect the problem to the consequence. And then we've looked at 4 different ways to do that. We have looked at the first one, which is set appropriate expectations and routines. Number 2 is provide consequences, clear consequences. Number 3 is be open to conversation. And number 4 is embrace the attempt and positivity. All right, thank you so much for joining me. Again, I'll see you again, same place, same time next week. In the meantime, remember to create experience and teach from the heart. Take care, my friends. Bye.